You know him. Maybe he was your cousin. Maybe he sat 2 seats over from you in 10th grade. Maybe, and I want you to really sit with this one, maybe he's you. He's the one who walks into the cookout with her hand in his, and before Uncle Ray can even get a full sentence out, he's already working the room, cracking a joke a half-second early, complimenting Auntie's potato salad before she's even set the pan all the way down, laughing a little too loud at something that wasn't even that funny. You ever notice that? The way some brothers turn into a one-man welcoming committee the second they walk in with a white woman on their arm, the extra charm, the quick pivot. The way his eyes are doing 3 things at once, reading her face, reading his mama's face, reading the temperature of the whole yard. That's not nerves. That's not just a man being extra because he's in love. That's a skill. That's a muscle he's been building since before he could drive a car. Now stay with me, because here's the part people miss. That performance, the charm, the pivot, the practiced ease, it did not start the night he brought her home to meet the family. It did not start with her at all. It started when he was 9 years old, sitting at his mother's kitchen table while she told him, calm and clear, exactly how to hold his hands if an officer ever asked him to step out of a car. It started when he was the only black face in the honors class, and figured out real quick that being the good one kept certain teachers off his back. It started in every job interview where he had to prove, before he'd even finished his handshake, that he wasn't whatever they'd already decided he might be. This is not new behavior. This is inherited behavior. The same tool his father used walking into a bank in 1974, asking for a loan he had every legal right to receive. The same tool his grandfather used stepping off a bus in a town he wasn't from, praying he read the room correctly before he opened his mouth. Passed down like a family recipe nobody ever wrote on paper. You just watched, you learned, and one day you looked up and realized you were doing it too fluently, like it was your first language. Because in a lot of ways it was. And now it's just showing up in a new room, his own living room, his own family, a woman he loves standing right next to him while he runs quiet interference for both of them at once. Let me show you what I mean. Picture the barbershop on a Saturday. He walks in, and before he's even in the chair, somebody's got a comment loaded up. "Oh, you still with Shorty?" Half joke, half test. He's got to land it just right. Not too defensive, not too soft. Answer it, flip it, keep the shop laughing, prove he's still one of them while loving somebody they've got quiet questions about. Picture the porch, the first time he brings her by the block. His uncle doesn't even come outside. Just watches through the screen door, arms crossed, saying nothing, which somehow says everything. But his grandmother, she's out there in her housecoat before the car's fully in park, already asking the girl if she's hungry, already deciding she likes her before either of them said 10 words. Same family. 2 completely different weather patterns in the same front yard. He's learned to read both without missing a step, meeting his uncle's silence with patience, his grandmother's warmth with relief, holding the whole spectrum of his family's reaction in his 2 hands like it's nothing, like it isn't exhausting. Picture the job. Monday morning, different voice, different posture, different vocabulary, the version of him that gets to keep the paycheck. He learned that voice long before she ever came into the picture, in rooms where one wrong word, one perceived attitude, could cost him a promotion somebody less careful would have gotten without a second thought. Picture his mother's kitchen table, months before the wedding, just the 2 of them. She's not hostile, she loves him too much for that. But she says something quiet, something loaded, something like, "Just make sure she really sees you, baby, all of you." And he says yes ma'am, and he means it, and he still doesn't fully know if it's true. Picture church, years later at his grandmother's funeral. His girlfriend, his wife by then, is standing next to him in the second pew, and he's translating without even meaning to. Telling her quietly when to stand, why the fans in the church start moving faster when Mother Wilson catches the spirit, how to hug his cousins without it feeling stiff. He's grieving and guiding at the exact same time. Nobody ever told him that was a job. He picked it up anyway. Picture the traffic stop. Blue lights in the mirror and his hands are already at 10 and 2 before the officer even reaches the window. Calm voice, slow movements. Yes, officer. He's done this dance alone 100 times. Now he's doing it with her in the passenger seat, watching him disappear somewhere in his own head she's never had to visit, wondering why his whole voice just changed. You see where I'm going with this? Every single one of those rooms, the cookout, the shop, the porch, the job, the kitchen table, the church pew, the front seat of that car asks something different of him. And over 30-some years, he built a version of himself sturdy enough to walk into every last one of them without cracking. Now let's rewind further, because you cannot understand this man without understanding when he was raised. This is a Gen X story. Born somewhere between the mid-60s and 1980, which means he grew up in the hangover of a movement his parents fought and bled for, but before the country had actually settled its bill. He was one of the first to integrate a classroom that didn't ask for him, first in his family to sit in rooms his grandparents weren't legally allowed to enter. He was a latchkey kid, while his mama worked 2 jobs and Reaganomics quietly rewrote what opportunity meant for families that looked like his. He came up watching the war on drugs turn his own neighborhood into a headline, watching the evening news treat the block like a crime scene, while the next channel oversold The Cosby Show, as proof everything was already fixed. 2 completely different Americas, same television set, same living room. This was also the generation that hip-hop grew up alongside, a culture built by kids like him, turning the volume up on stories the evening news never told right. For the first time, this generation had a megaphone that belonged to them, even while everything else around them was still trying to define who they were before they'd gotten the chance to define it themselves. He watched Lowe's Angels burn in '92. He watched the country split clean down the middle over the O.J. Simpson case, the Bronco chase in '94, the verdict in '95. Half the country seeing one thing, the other half seeing something entirely different. And him old enough by then to understand exactly what that split said about how he was seen depending on who was doing the looking. And through all of it, interracial love itself was barely out of its own infancy. The Supreme Court didn't strike down the last laws banning it until 1967, which means when this man started dating in the 80s and 90s, that ruling wasn't ancient history. It was closer to his childhood than his childhood is to right now. Sociologists have tracked interracial marriage climbing steadily in the decades since it proof that love kept finding its way across a line the law had only just stopped enforcing, even while plenty of the culture around it took a lot longer to catch up. He wasn't just falling in love. He was doing it in a country that had only just recently, on paper, agreed he was allowed to. That's the part nobody talks about. This generation didn't just inherit racism. They inherited whiplash. One message from the culture, a different message from the block, a third message from whatever room he happened to be standing in that day. Researchers have language for pieces of what he's carrying. Sociologists call some of it code switching, and linguists have studied how effortlessly and how expensively Black Americans have had to move between registers of speech depending on who's listening. Psychologist Claude Steele spent years studying what he called stereotype threat, the way the fear of confirming somebody's assumption about you can change your performance in a room before you even open your mouth. Educators have written for decades about the acting white accusation, the way some black kids who excelled got treated like they'd betrayed the block to succeed out there. W.E.B. Du Bois wrote about a version of this over 100 years ago and called it double consciousness, the exhausting experience of always seeing yourself through 2 sets of eyes at once, never fully at rest in either. Paul Laurence Dunbar wrote about the mask a generation before that. Frantz Fanon wrote a whole book about the psychology of learning to perform whiteness just to move safely through a world that wasn't built for you. None of this is new. This man is just the latest one carrying it. Now hold on, because here's how it becomes a tool. Everything I just described, the charm, the calm, the fluency in 2 or 3 cultural languages, it works. It's currency. It's the thing that got him through interviews his resume alone might not have carried him through. It's the armor that let him sit in a boardroom and not flinch at a comment somebody thought was harmless. It's the shield that kept the peace at his mother's table for 20 Thanksgivings straight without a single blow-up. And in this relationship, specifically, it's the bridge. He became the connective tissue between two families, two histories, two sets of expectations that were never built to meet in the middle. And for the most part, he built that bridge alone, plank by plank, usually at night, usually in silence. That first cookout invite, by the way. That was a crossroads. Once you walk her into that yard, you can't unring that bell. Everybody's got an opinion now. And he stood right at that fork and walked forward anyway, because he loved her more than he feared the room. Now let me lighten this up for a second because it is not all heavy. This man has 3 different phone voices. Y'all know exactly what I'm talking about. There's the voice for his mama, yes ma'am, I'll call you right back, yes ma'am. There's the voice for his boys from around the way, drops a whole octave, sentences get real short, everything's bet and say less. And now he's got a third voice. The one for her family's Thanksgiving table, where he's explaining, real slow and real patient, why he's good on the green bean casserole. No, he will not be trying the fruitcake. And yes, he understands Aunt Linda means well by asking if he grew up around here. 3 voices. 3 passports. 1 man, 1 Saturday. Nobody ever handed him a manual for any of it. He wrote his own, 1 uncomfortable room at a time. But here's the thing about running 3 passports for 30 straight years. Let me bring this back around, because this is where it gets heavy again. A man who is always translating is a man who is rarely resting. A man who reads every room like a weather system. Is it safe in here? Is it warm in here? Do I need the armor on, or can I set it down for a second? That man is tired in a way he has never once said out loud to anybody, including himself. Public health researchers have a name for part of what this does to a body over time. They call it Henryism, the idea that black men who cope with chronic pressure through non-stop high-effort determination end up paying for it later, in blood pressure, in heart strain, in years they don't get back. The mask doesn't just cost him peace of mind. It costs him friendships he never had the bandwidth to maintain, because he spent every ounce of his social energy managing everybody else's comfort first. It costs him closeness with his own kids, because a man who spent 30 years perfecting the art of not saying he's tired doesn't automatically know how to start saying it at his own dinner table. Ask him how he's really doing and watch how fast he changes the subject, cracks a joke, turns it back around to ask about you instead. That's not deflection because he doesn't care. That's 30 years of practice making sure he's never the one who needs tending to in a room. It costs him a very specific, very quiet kind of loneliness. The kind where you can be fully surrounded, fully loved even, and still feel like nobody in the room has ever seen the whole of you, because you've never once shown them the whole of you. That's the part nobody talks about. The silence isn't peace. The silence is exhaustion, wearing peace's clothes so nobody worries. Now hold on, though, because I need you to hear this next part clearly. This man is not weak. Everything I just described, that is not weakness. That is 30 years of finely tuned emotional intelligence, cultural fluency, and grace under fire that most people could not survive a single week of. The mask worked. It got him the job. It got him a promotion somebody less careful would have talked himself out of. It kept 20 years of holidays from falling apart at the table. It built an actual working bridge between 2 families who never would have found their way to each other without him standing in the middle of it. The mask worked. It's just the bill is coming due. And bills like this one don't take partial payments. They come for the whole balance, all at once, usually around 2 in the morning, when a man his age is staring at the ceiling wondering why his chest feels tight, and he can't think of a single person he'd actually call to talk about it. So here's your compassionate truth, and I need you to sit with that. I'm not telling you to burn the mask down. Let's be honest about that. You cannot walk into your job tomorrow, and decide to be your full, unfiltered self if your full, unfiltered self doesn't come with a pension attached. The world hasn't fully earned that from you yet, and I'm not going to stand here and pretend that it has. What I am telling you is this: you need one room, just one, where the mask can come all the way off and nobody flinches. Where you are not managing anybody's comfort but your own for once. Where you're allowed to say, "I'm tired," out loud, and nobody rushes in to fix it. They just let you be tired for a minute. Maybe that room is a therapist's office. Maybe it's your barber, if he's the real kind, the kind who actually listens between customers instead of just talking at you. Maybe, and this is the one a lot of men don't want to hear, maybe that room needs to be with her. The same woman you've spent years protecting from the full weight of your world might be a lot stronger than you've been giving her credit for. She might be able to hold some of what you've been carrying alone, if you ever let her see the whole thing, instead of just the version you've been managing for her comfort too. It might look small from the outside. Sitting in the driveway an extra 5 minutes before you go in, just breathing, telling one person, just one, that the day wore you down more than you let on, letting somebody see you before you fixed your face. It doesn't have to be dramatic. It just has to be honest, and it has to be somewhere. You do not need to drop the mask everywhere. You just need somewhere to finally set it down. Because a man who never once puts the mask all the way down doesn't just lose his peace over time. Eventually, he loses touch with the parts of himself that mask was built to protect in the first place. And that's the real cost. Not the tired, not the silence, the slow disappearing act of the actual man underneath all that armor. Before you go, one more thing, and then I'll let you get on with your day. That little boy who learned to read a room before he ever learned to read a book. The one who figured out early that his safety, and his family's peace, depended on how well he could manage a space full of people who didn't always see him clearly. He's still in there. He didn't go anywhere. He's just been running this operation so long he forgot he's allowed to clock out sometimes too. Go check on him.